antisocial because I'm not sitting with anybody,
Or if it's
nicer because I'm
sure.
saving room for other people.
Anywhere comfortable.
Where's your honey at?
You know, the babies needed to stay today. Yeah.
Waiting for a couple of stragglers here.
There, a day trip. That's a lot.
Hey, that's
Oh, thank you. Great, I appreciate it.
All right, good evening, everybody. Good to see everyone. A little chilly day here in late May. And welcome. Welcome if you're online with us. My name's Ben, and we're going to be, this is what, this is week number 12. 12 of 13. One more week to go, folks. We're almost there. And, so welcome, everybody. Warning, 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 Will Robinson. Going to be doing a lot of reading tonight. I will be doing a lot of reading. You will be doing a lot of paying of attention. And that goes for you people online too. So it's chapters 10 through 12. And the reason why we're going to read the whole, we're going to read it start to finish. And I wanted to do that because I think it really helps us get the feel and the flow for what Paul's trying to do in these chapters. We've been talking about 10 and 11 with Dave, and so I'm going to, technically I'm supposed to pick up at the middle of 15 or middle of 11 and finish up through 12, but I really want us to back up and look at the whole picture, and even beyond that. We're gonna set up the context even a little bit more because we're gonna drop back into 1 Corinthians and read from chapter 1 of 1 Corinthians a little bit. So warning, warning, warning. We're gonna read, and you're gonna pay attention and follow along.
We're reading the Bible in Bible class.
Reading the Bible in Bible class.
Amazing.
How about that?
scandalous.
Amazing. Reading some scripture. And as we're reading, you know,
Sorry.
just to set it up just a little bit, and not that I need to because you guys are all Bible scholars in here already, but this has been a lengthy relationship with Paul and the Corinthian church, right? He spent 1.5 years there with these, he planted the church there. He converted these people. There's been all kinds of conflict and back and forth and issues and problems, drama, lots of drama going on in Corinth. And Paul's been their pastor. He's been their overseer. He's been their father in the faith. And he struggled with them. And now, as we've been talking about in chapters 10 and the first part of 11, you know, we've been talking about his wrestling with these folks that are opposing him and trying to discredit his ministry and discredit him personally. And so that's kind of setting up the whole context of what we're dealing with. So again, let's start reading. Let's go back again. Let's start in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. And I'm going to pick up verse 16. And we're going to read actually into chapter 2, verse 5. All right? Bible? You people online, got your Bible open? Okay. Picking up verse 18. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise. The intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs, and Greeks look for wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews, and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God, and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God. That is our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. And so it was with me, brothers and sisters, when I came to you. I did not come with eloquence or human wisdom as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. For I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I came to you in weakness and with great fear and trembling. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. All right, let's jump over now to our subject chapters for tonight. And again, I'm going to read all of chapters 10 through 12. 2 Corinthians, chapters 10 through 12. And notice, you're going to see some similar phrases, some similar words from the first reading. And I want you to think about the relationship between the first reading and what we're going to read now. Okay? So just let that, as Billy says, percolate, or whatever his word is. Chapter 10, verse 1. By the humility and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you, I, Paul, who am timid when face to face with you, but bold toward you when away. I beg you that when I come, I may not have to be as bold as I expect to be toward some people who think that we live by the standards of this world. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And we will be ready to punish every act of disobedience once your obedience is complete. You are judging by appearances. If anyone is confident that they belong to Christ, they should consider again that we belong to Christ just as much as they do. So even if I boast somewhat freely about the authority the Lord gave us for building you up rather than tearing you down, I will not be ashamed of it. I do not want to seem to be trying to frighten you with my letters, for some say his letters are weighty and forceful, but in person he is unimpressive and his speaking amounts to nothing. Such people should realize that what we are in our letters when we are absent, we will be in our actions when we are present. We do not dare to classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. When they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are not wise. We, however, will not boast beyond proper limits, but will continue our boasting to the sphere of service God himself has assigned to us, a sphere that also includes you. We are not going too far in our boasting, as would be the case if we had not come to you, for we did get as far as you with the gospel of Christ. Neither do we go beyond our limits by boasting of work done by others. Our hope is that as your faith continues to grow, our sphere of activity among you will greatly expand, so that we can preach the gospel in the regions beyond you. For we do not want to boast about work already done in someone else's territory, but let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. For it is not the one who commends himself who is approved, but the one who the Lord commends. Chapter 11. I hope you will put up with me in a little foolishness. Yes, please put up with me. I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy. I promised you to one husband, to Christ, so that I might present you as a pure virgin to him. But I am afraid that just as Eve was deceived by the serpent's cunning, your minds may somehow be led astray from your sincere and pure devotion to Christ. For if someone comes to you and preaches a Jesus other than the Jesus we preached, or if you receive a different spirit from the spirit you received, or a different gospel from the one you accepted, you put up with it easily enough. I do not think I am in the least inferior to those super apostles. I may indeed be untrained as a speaker, but I do have knowledge. We have made this perfectly clear to you in every way. Was it a sin for me to lower myself in order to elevate you by preaching the gospel of God to you free of charge? I robbed other churches by receiving support from them so as to serve you. And when I was with you and needed something, I was not a burden to anyone, for the brothers who came from Macedonia supplied what I needed. I have kept myself from being a burden to you in any way, and will continue to do so. As surely as the truth of Christ is in me, nobody in the regions of Achaia will stop this boasting of mine. Why? Because I do not love you? God knows I do. I will keep on doing what I am doing in order to cut the ground from under those who want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the things they boast about. For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. It is not surprising, then, if his servants are also masquerade as servants of righteousness. Their end will be what their actions deserve. I repeat, let no one take me for a fool. But if you do, then tolerate me just as you would a fool, so that I may do a little boasting. In this self-confident boasting, I am not talking as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since many are boasting in the way the world does, I too will boast. You gladly put up with fools, since you are so wise. In fact, you even put up with anyone who enslaves you, or exploits you, or takes advantage of you, or puts on airs, or slaps you in the face. To my shame, I admit that we were too weak for that. Whatever anyone else dares to boast about, I am speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast about. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they Abraham's descendants? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I am out of my mind to talk like this. I am more. I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak, and I do not feel weak? Who is led into sin, and I do not inwardly burn? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. The God and Father of the Lord Jesus, who is to be praised forever, knows that I am not lying. In Damascus, the governor under King Aretas had the city of the Damascenes guarded in order to arrest me. But I was lowered in a basket from a window in the wall and slipped through his hands. Chapter 12. I must go on boasting. Although there is nothing to be gained, I will go on to visions and revelations from the Lord. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And I know that this man, whether in the body or apart from the body, I do not know, but God knows, was caught up to paradise and heard inexpressible things, things that no one is permitted to tell. I will boast about a man like that, but I will not boast about myself, except about my weaknesses. Even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool, because I would be speaking the truth. But I refrain, so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surpassingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. I have made a fool of myself, but you drove me to it. I ought to have been commended by you, for I am not in the least inferior to these super apostles, even though I am nothing. I persevered in demonstrating among you the marks of a true apostle, including signs and wonders and miracles. How were you inferior to the other churches, except that I was never a burden to you? Forgive me this wrong. Now I am ready to visit you for the 3rd time, and I will not be a burden to you, because what I want is not your possessions, but you. After all, children should not have to save up for the parents, but parents for their children. So I will very gladly spend for you everything I have, and expend myself as well. If I love you more, will you love me less? Be that as it may, I have not been a burden to you. Yet, crafty fellow that I am, I caught you by trickery. Did I exploit you through any of the men I sent to you? I urged Titus to go to you, and I sent our brother with him. Titus did not exploit you, did he? Did we not walk in the same footsteps by the same Spirit? Have you been thinking all along that we have been defending ourselves to you? We have been speaking in the sight of God as those in Christ, and everything we do, dear friends, is for your strengthening. For I am afraid that when I come, I may not find you as I want you to be, and you may not find me as you want me to be. I fear that there may be discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, slander, gossip, arrogance, and disorder. I am afraid that when I come again, my God will humble me before you, and I will be grieved over many who have sinned earlier and have not repented of the impurity, sexual sin, and debauchery in which they have indulged. I titled the lesson, Paul Never Gives Up. Why do you think I chose to read the passage from 1 Corinthians? You weren't here, Mark, when we read that.
I think just
peaceful as spiritual pilgrims.
In the First Corinthian passage that we read, what was Paul pointing to? What was his
Preach nothing but Jesus.
what was he contrasting?
Wisdom and foolishness.
Wisdom and foolishness? What's the what does he classify as well, he talks about wisdom in two senses, right? The wisdom of the world, right? And then the wisdom of God. What's the difference?
One's a lot better than the other one.
Yeah. Well, yep.
He also talks about the power of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that, that even harks back to the first chapter of Romans, when he says the same thing. I'm not afraid of don't be afraid or don't be ashamed of the
Mm-hmm.
gospel.
Great is the
It's
power
of God and
of
salvation.
salvation, right?
But again, just a consistent
Mm-hmm.
theology and
Mm-hmm.
Christology through his letters.
Yeah, you would see that consistency for sure. He says, who is the teacher of where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of, has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? How did God make foolish the wisdom of the world?
Through Jesus.
Through Jesus, what do you mean?
Well, Jesus was kind of the opposite of what everybody thought would make sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. To Rod's point, the power of the gospel, right? I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. This to what the world would consider foolishness, right? Foolishness. I said last week, I think it was last week when we were talking, the cross is a shameful thing. The cross is a place of shame and humiliation. And yet, what Rod said, it's the power of the gospel. And God has made the wisdom of the world foolishness. And through the power of the gospel. There was a lot going on in the Corinthian, or in that culture, of course, as there is today. He says, Jews demand signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. There was a lot of the Greeks love to debate, right? They love to discuss all these great ideas and go back and forth and talk about and there was this teacher and that teacher and it's a lot of ego stuff going on. And then along comes, to Reuben's point, along comes Christ and completely flips that upside down with the foolishness of the gospel, right? And so Paul, in the last part of that reading there in the first chapter, he says, when I came to you, I did not come with eloquence or human wisdom. I didn't come with human wisdom, as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I came to you in weakness and with great fear and trembling. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom. He returns to some of those same ideas as he speaks to them here in chapters 10 through 12 in 2 Corinthians. Remember that there was all kinds of relational issues going on with the church. There was teachers there that were trying to discredit Paul. There was division, all kinds of things. There was money. There was concerns about raising money. Lots of egos going on. Worldly wisdom. I think in a lot of what we're talking about here in these chapters, again, reflecting back to what he was saying in the first chapter of 1 Corinthians, he's really going back to that same idea, you know. These folks, oh, they come looking real good. They come talking a good talk. They come, you know, criticizing me and making, you know, belittling me, and they've got all the credentials. But let's talk about the real credentials. and in the one section there, I think is in chapter 11, when he starts. You want to talk about boasting? If that's what we want to do, if that's what we really want to do, if that's what it's going to take, well, let's go there. Yeah, let's go there. I'll go there. And he goes down this whole litany.
You was gonna have a boast off.
Yeah, a boast off, right. Yeah, let's have a boast off. But what was the difference between Paul's boast off versus the boastings of these other guys?
He showed the lengths he's willing to go and the endurance he's willing to go through in order to show. And it has nothing to do with his words. It has to do with how he's living.
Right.
Can you elaborate on chapter 11, verse 8, when he says, I rob other churches by receiving support from them so that as to serve you. Was he trying to convince, or was he trying to make the people who he was preaching to feel guilty of?
He was caught in these opposing teachers were using the fact that he did not take money from the Corinthians as a point that they should use against him. They were making that argument. Well, he didn't take any money from you. He must not be. I'm just speculating on what the argument might have been. He didn't take any money from you. He must not think his message is worth anything. He's discrediting his own message if he doesn't take money for it. And he's refuting that. He says, I was just trying to not be a burden to you. I didn't want to be a burden to you. The language there, he says, we rob from other churches so as not to be a burden to you. Why? Because I love you. Because I love you. I didn't want to be perceived as some of the, as someone who was marketing the gospel for a profit, right?
Yeah, he used the word peddler,
Peddler, right, yeah.
I think about, at least for me, so my parents being missionaries in Cambodia, what they've seen is people will come in and they'll offer different things. And then, of course, everybody believes whatever they say, and people are getting baptized every time a new group comes in, because if you do what they say, then they give you the things.
Right.
And then you get all the things.
That's right, yeah.
And I think similarly in here, I think it's a little bit different, but the same idea of Paul saying, like, I'm not trying to take from you so you actually hear what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Whereas, like, similarly, it's like my parents are like, we're not going to be giving you things because we want you to hear and receive the message for what it is, not for the sake of receiving. So again, like a little bit opposite, but the same kind of concept of
Sure.
let me get everything out of the way that would keep you from like actually listening to the message
Right,
and not thinking there's an ulterior motive around it.
right, right. And so, while he's got that motivation, he gets, these opposing preachers or teachers or whoever they are that are coming into the church there, they're beating him up for it. So it's like, no matter what I do, it's wrong. I could take money and they probably criticize me for that. If I don't take money, I get criticized for that, right? So it's just like, well, okay. But that's what's going on there, Ivan.
So I just thought of something when you guys were talking about the persecutions or the things that happened to him. There's part of me that says, God isn't with this man. He doesn't make it through all this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of
Yeah.
what he's saying as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Says it isn't my flowery language you ought to look at. It's what I've been up to.
The marks of an apostle.
Mm-hmm.
What are the marks of an apostle? You want to see some marks of an apostle? I'll show you some marks. You want to see some marks? I'll show you marks. Let me take my shirt off. Look at my back for a second. I got some marks to show you. This is what the gospel's meant for me. Going back to, hey, is this now from a worldly position, from a worldly wisdom position? Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense? You took, what is it? You went through that whole litany there: shipwrecked, beaten, rods, imprisoned, in danger at sea. How does that make any sense? And see, I'm sure I would speculate that that's some of the argument that was being laid against him, right? Again, going back to no matter what I say or do, I'm going to get criticized, no matter what.
That's when you do what is right. That's when you try to do what is right. Whenever, never mind what you do, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Just do whatever
Yeah.
you think is right
Yeah.
in the face of God.
Yeah. And so what do you are you starting to feel? I hope that as we're talking here, you're starting to kind of feel a sense of how this might be impacting your Christian walk. Anybody been in that situation where I'm just trying to do the right thing here. I'm just trying to do what Christ has called me to do. I'm getting hammered from both sides. Right? Were there any high points in those scriptures in that reading that jumped out to you? It was a long reading, I know.
I think for me, I just really appreciate how Paul's like, yeah, I could boast, but like, it's not about me anyway. And like, I don't actually care. Like, I get the impression at least that he's like, these other people, if they were teaching Jesus, then like, whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
But because they're not, I
Right.
feel like I have to say
Yep.
something.
Yep.
And I think that's where
What?
I can struggle at least sometimes, because it's really easy to make it become more about me and less about Jesus. And I think that's something I'm appreciating as we read through these parts of Paul's. Like, Paul's being attacked and his response is really like, it's about Jesus anyway. So like, I can give you these things, but
Right.
the proof is in Jesus, not in me.
Right.
And I've even asked
you're-
Jesus to help me, and he's like, nah, I'm not going to do that because it's better for you. When
You're-
you aren't good, I'm better.
You're pushing me to this. You push me to. I'm talking like a fool, but you've made me do it.
One interesting, I think it's in 12, when he talks about the vision.
And Yeah.
Obviously it was Paul that was that guy.
Sure. Yeah.
And, but to me, and again, I may be misinterpreting it, but
Mm-hmm.
was this God saying to Paul, says, I know you've been through a lot, but I want to show you something.
Uh-huh.
I want to show you something.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna be able to talk about it. You're not gonna be able to share with anybody, but, you know, to make sure that you don't give up,
Right.
you know. And I think there are things in our life
Mm-hmm.
that God gives to us,
Mm.
perhaps not a vision,
Yeah.
but a thing that will encourage us
Yeah.
to keep going,
Hold on.
to hold
Hold
on.
on.
And then the thing about the thorn in the flesh, whatever that was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but, you know, and I think Paul would say, even though he wanted it taken away, that that was worth what he saw. In that.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. What, if you had to just, I know we're just speculating here, I know, you know, this is not anything authoritative, but if you had to just think in your mind the type of message that these opponents of Paul were speaking into the Corinthian Christians in that church there, that was making them turn their heads, like, wow, ooh, wow, that's, ooh. Anybody want to venture a speculation? And I know it's just speculation. We're not, you know, we're not saying it's right, wrong, but, or a type of teaching that it might have been.
It seems like it's one that leaves room for the person to be individually important.
Uh-huh.
Like it, I actually wonder how
Mhm.
much the Jesus part was like super different or just like downplayed as not as
Mm-hmm.
central.
Right.
Because I think like
Yeah.
the message of Paul is you aren't important, Jesus is. You as a body matter to Jesus, but
Mhm.
like you as an individual pale in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like this is, we are important as messengers of Jesus,
Mhm.
and therefore we become the priority instead of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know beyond that, but it seems like at least structurally
We're
that's
just,
the
we're
context.
just speculating here. We're just
well, the first
dreaming and
chapter,
scheming.
first chapter, it shows that they were kind of susceptible to, you know, bright lights in the big city. you
Right.
know, and,
Mhm.
and personalities.
Yep.
And they, personality cult.
Mm-hmm.
And so said, listen, hey, you died for your sins.
Yeah.
Who was on the cross?
That's right.
None of these guys.
Right.
You know, so,
Yeah.
but, and that can, you know, the shiny object, we become crows. Shiny object.
Right.
We
Right.
chase after and go get it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that these people were pretty adept in their appearance and in their
Mhm.
speech.
Yep. Mhm.
And,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, and they probably did have letters of recommendation on that.
Mm-hmm.
Things
Yep.
that would impress these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They had the look. They had the look, right? They were preaching. Oh, Paul said you know there might be some suffering involved. Oh, no. There's no suffering. No. You don't have to do that. No. Don't worry about that part. I'm just speculating here. To go ahead.
This may have been said before. I'm gonna admit, I left my hearing aids on my dresser. I'm trying hard to hear everything. But if Paul is preaching singularly the truth, and these Judaizers seem to be bigger in number. People are swayed by numbers.
Numbers, right.
And it's just the way it is.
Oh, yeah.
And if they're all saying similar
Mhm.
falsehoods,
Yeah.
that becomes a little convincing for those that are on the fence, I would
Mhm.
think.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it's conjecture on my part as well.
Yeah. We're
And
just,
probably it's already been said.
well,
That's a good one.
what are the types of things that are appealing to us? I mean, where are our vulnerabilities? I guess is probably the ultimate point, right?
Make it easy.
Make it easy.
That's what I want.
Man,
Right?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, it never
Let's-
hurts,
this
it
is-
never hurts to be flattered either.
Uh-huh.
You guys got a lot going on at this congregation.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Turn the TV
Yeah.
on, there's prosperity pimps all over the place.
Yeah, uh-huh. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. You can have, you can have it all.
He's talked about this wisdom from above and wisdom from below number of times in the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, yeah.
essentially, the argument that he presents is that wisdom from below is life is a zero-sum game. When you gain, somebody else loses.
That's earthly wisdom?
There's a limited, yes, amount of good things in the world.
Mm-hmm, okay.
And wisdom from above, it says what? There's no limit. God is the giver of all gifts, and he can give everybody a gift if he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this notion of, I win. Here's some message, whether it's easy or whether it's, I benefit in some way,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and it makes me better.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody else has got to lose in order to do that.
Ah.
And it's not about God,
Mm.
giving blessings.
Mm-hmm.
It's about me winning.
Mm-hmm. Very egocentric. Now, hey, I have an ego. Who has an ego here? I got an ego. I'm vulnerable. I don't like it, when God says to me, hey, you gotta put your ego behind you, dude. Blessed are the poor in spirit. You bring nothing. Listen, it's all about me. God's saying it's all about me. To Reuben's point, it's all about God. Ben plugs into what God is doing. That's where Ben gets whatever he's got. It's not about what Ben's got. Ben brings nothing to the table. That doesn't appeal to my ego very much. Gosh.
It reminds me of Billy's message week before last, where he talked about the king and about submitting. To get God's blessings, the first thing you got to do is submit.
Mm-hmm.
You got to submit to the king and, serve him.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys obviously are not preaching serve him, they serve
Mhm.
themselves.
Right. And it's very appealing. Oh man, that sounds good. Maybe that Paul guy, maybe he didn't have all the facts. Maybe he didn't have it all. These guys sound right. I like these guys.
Also, they're present.
Right.
It's like-
And that's a great
Just
point.
the reality is like, it's easier
That-
to believe somebody who's talking to you right
That is
now
that is a great point.
than
Right.
this guy came 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
I think I remember what he
Yeah.
said, but
Yeah.
well, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah. Just think. And Paul refers to it here, I don't know exactly where. Here it says, besides everything else, he says, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Yeah, he's not there. He's not present with them. All these things are going on. Oh, how he would love to be able to have a face-to-face conversation with some of these folks. And he can write the best letter he can write. That's what he's trying to do here. He's using every rhetorical tool he's got. He's humbling himself. He says he's making a fool of himself, right? For why? For their sake, because he cares for them. He's their pastor. He's their spiritual father. And but he's not present with them. And his concern, and not just the Corinthian church, the churches of Galatia and Ephesus, and most of the books of the New Testament are written, from Paul to a church because of a reason that he needs to address, right? There's an occasion. He's got something that he needs to talk to the church about, that he's concerned about. But the fact that he's not present, as a shepherd of this church, you know, and I speak for all the shepherds, we have concerns about the people in our flock. And we're present, we're here with the flock. And it's still, you know, a concern. We're still, you know, carry the pressure of our concern for the flock here at Three Chopped. I can't imagine what it would be like if I was a couple of 100 miles away in the first century, and the only thing I could do is write letters back and forth and hope that whoever's with the church is not undermining everything that I'm trying to accomplish in the meantime. So yeah, that's a great point.
Well, one of the things that strikes me as interesting there, and I definitely think it's difficult to win an argument when you're someplace else and who you're arguing with is in front of the people you're trying to
Right.
persuade.
Yeah.
But he spends, if there's one word that jumps out in all of those readings that you did, is boast.
Boast. Right.
And in fact, he is boasting.
Yes.
Now,
He
he's boasting and he says, you know, I did all this because of God. But the fact of the matter is he lists, if we went through and took out what he said about what he did, there's a huge amount of good things that he did. And he lists them all.
Yeah.
But yet, his motivation is different in terms of this boasting. But he's telling them exactly what he's done.
Yeah. He is really fighting hard to regain his credibility, to establish his credibility, to remind them, and he goes back. What was that phrase? Oh yeah, here it is. In chapter 12, what is it, verse 18, I urged Titus to go on with you, and I sent our brother with him. Titus did not exploit you, did he? Did we not walk in the same footsteps by the same Spirit? You know, he's reminding them. Don't you remember? We were together. You understood where we were coming from. We had the same Spirit. Chapter 12, going back to the thorn in the flesh. He talked about this great revelation, right? And he doesn't mention his name. Again, he doesn't say it was me, but you know, we get the understanding that he's talking about himself. But he says, therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited. So he has this great revelation. I mean, a human being, someone with an ego like me, that if I had a revelation from God, if I had an encounter and was shown these unbelievable, magnificent things, that might have a tendency to boast my ego up a little bit. I might think I was all that. I just might. But Paul says, he says, therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And then the next word, therefore. Therefore, I will, to Jack's phrase that we saw all through this reading, Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I'm strong. Wow.
Those are some of my favorite verses.
That's spirit words right there. I mean, that's just spirit words.
It just really
know.
helps you when you're having a
Yeah.
rough spell.
He says, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. God's power is made perfect in weakness. God's power is made perfect in weakness.
When you're empty, you can be filled with the Spirit.
Right. So, my hope and prayer for us as a church is that we'll find God's power in our weakness. Right? We'll find His power in our weakness. In our bumblings and fumblings and, misunderstandings, in our rubbing against each other, that in the midst of all that, God's power will be found. And that His grace will be magnified and just multiplied over and over, so that the wisdom of the cross will be the focus of what we're about here at this church, right? Okay.
I love the part in chapter 11, verses 16, it says, I repeat, let no one take me for a fool, but if you do, then tolerate me as you would a fool. That is, there are times we're in classes and some smart guy teaching and somebody might not interpret or say something what they're saying, what they should be saying, and then you look at that person as just being, oh, you need to go back to Bible study, you know what I mean? It's not happened here, but I have seen that has happened on occasion. Some person teaching would be so smart and so Bible hierarchy that they would not every question, the only question that is bad is the one that is not asked. And I might not be knowledge, even though I've been going to church all my life, but then there are certain things that I might not understand and I might be seem foolish. So all the time I ask you, please tolerate. Please tolerate.
Right back at you, brother. Right
Yeah,
back
that's
at
right.
you. Right back at you. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
And Mark will wrap it up next